All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We're opening the budget hearing at this time. So if anybody'd like to speak to the city budget, now is your time.
Yeah, I'm muted too.
Nobody'd like to speak to the budget? All right. We'll close the budget hearing and call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes. Next item is the consent agenda. Are there any questions or changes on the minutes from the previous meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. All opposed nay. Motion passes. Next is public comment. Is there anybody here that'd like to speak to something not on the agenda? Jerry, I'm just going to keep looking at you.
Thank you, Your Honor, but I have nothing to say.
That's unusual.
I appreciate the respect.
Anytime. Okay, next special report. Sean?
My name is Sean Gordon, and I'm with Gordon CPA. So I'll go through the audit report that you have in front of you, kind of section by section, and then if you have any questions, just feel free to stop me along the way. So starting with pages 1 and 2, this is the independent auditor's report. Here we discuss management's responsibilities for the financial statements, and then the auditor's responsibilities for the financial statements. And one of our largest responsibilities is to issue an opinion for the city's financial statements for the year end 2019. So if you flip to page 2, the second paragraph down, the heading there is unmodified opinion on the Kansas regulatory basis of accounting. So that's the highest and cleanest opinion that we can issue for the city under kind of state guidelines. So it reflects very well on the financial management of the city for 2019. Flipping forward to page 3, this is the summary statement of receipts, expenditures, and ending cash. You'll see beginning cash, you'll see all the funds of the city listed there on the left-hand side, and then beginning cash, receipts, expenditures, and then ending cash in the right-hand column. So down at the very bottom of that right-hand column, you'll see the cash on hand that the city had at 12/31/2019. The next section forward is pages 4 through 11. These are the notes to the financial statements. There's quite a bit of information that's discussed here, including information on the city's accounting policies, long-term debt, CAPERS retirement plan, and many others, as I said before. And then the final section in the back copy that in front of you is pages 12 through 37. These are just more detailed breakouts of the funds that you saw on page 3. So in this section, we do a comparison to the budget, if that fund has a budget that was adopted for 2019. And then we also do a comparison to the prior year, which would be 2018. So you can compare 2018 to 2019 activity. And then also you should have a separate piece of paper that has the audit recommendations on that. We issued 3 audit recommendations for 2019. And then when we do the audit for 2020, we'll check up on those recommendations and see, what has changed, if anything, on those. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions for Sean?
Where were the recommendations?
And we're on a separate piece of paper.
I don't think we've got a separate.
I have a copy of it that I can give.
We just have the book.
I think at some point, instead of all of us just reading it, the public's going to need to know what's on that too, so.
And that's up to you. The public doesn't necessarily have to know
You
because
can,
that letter.
can you just outline it, because it look,
Yeah,
they're
they're
minor.
Yeah, there were 3 recommendations in there, the lowest on the scale, I think 3 different types of recommendations that we can issue. So one of them was on a reconciliation of balance sheet items. There were a few payroll liabilities that weren't being reconciled throughout the year, so that's a recommendation that we would recommend that they be reconciled. We tested 25 credit card transactions, and 5 of them included the payment of sales tax. So again, that's just something that we look forward to see if sales tax was paid. And then bank reconciliations, when there was the transition from the previous finance director, some bank reconciliations weren't approved. So that, again, is just a normal recommendation we make, that somebody's reviewing and approving that bank reconciliation each month.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Sean? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item under old business is city flag design. I don't know if we have those to show on the screen or not.
I do.
Scott wasn't here to see that.
So mine got cut early in the process
Oh, did you?
with the color blotches. The color palette one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you just put your coffee.
That's the original one. The third one is slightly modified background to do the running across the sea. And the other 2 are variations of the tree zone.
I'll jump in. I like the original design, so that would be one of the bottom 2. The original is the bottom. To Julie's point, at the last meeting, the original one, that one right there that Laura's on, the colors really are more vibrant on that one, and that's what you told us. If we change the colors, it might mute it a little bit. But for me, I like the original design more than I like the other 2.
I agree. Now that I'm seeing it put together, I like the original design.
I do too. I do like the variation of it though. I don't know, it kind of, first of all, the background looks like it might differentiate from the Kansas flag a little bit, which was one of my concerns. And then, I'm at it's the third down.
I like the orange too.
It kind of evokes Baker a little bit, and I kind of like that.
And I'm guessing that matches the city orange that we use.
Can I speak to the artist's original thought on the original design?
Yes, please.
With her, what she calls an indigo, that original design, that's the one design. She said she grew up here, and she went to USD Big 48 all the way through high school, and she told me, she said, I always felt like Baker was a little bubble all of its own. And then I went to Baker, and I realized that the town here because of Baker. And she said, now I know, having lived several other places, that both views are kind of problematic. That was her thinking in taking the 2 colors and merging them into what she called indigo.
Well,
That was her reasoning for this.
I also like the original. I thought about this after the last meeting, and I think that when you change the artist's stuff, you're losing the integrity of what she was trying to convey. So I would choose the original.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we select the original flag for Baldwin City.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item is the 2021 budget ordinance that we just had a hearing on. Is there anybody who'd like to speak to this? Any comment from the council? Published?
We have them here also to answer the questions.
I didn't recognize him with a mask on.
I know, I was wondering who that was.
My wife said, yeah, that's.
I didn't.
It's gotta be thicker.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear from Ben behind the mask.
It is nice to be back here. $19 million budget, $19.8 million budget spread out between capital and operating funds. As you can see from 2020, as you know, from 2020 to 2021, there wasn't much of a change. Didn't expect much of a change. There are a few items that are in the works, mostly capital, that will come back this fall as we continue to talk about them. But this process has probably been one of the better ones that I've been involved in. And the reason I say that is because you guys have the subcommittee process that really gets down and understands what's in behind that budget. So there's only one other time I've been involved in a process like that. It was up at KCK. It made it a lot easier to go through a budget. So I appreciate that.
Any questions for Ben? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 1421, 2021 budget.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Scott?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Brian? Aye. Susan?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next is the facade grants for 714 and 720 East Street. That application, this was discussed in the Finance Committee. Was it? Community Development, sorry. I knew we discussed it on the committee. Are there any questions or anything on this?
So, the 5,000 that we would give them, I'm not sure why.
We've done it on all the downtown buildings. That if
Okay.
they fix up the downtown buildings, the facade of them to make them look better,
Okay.
then the city will match up to $5,000.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's already. in
Sounds
our
good.
budget.
We have a policy. I suppose we could get it to Laura. It could be shared since it's part of the program. So
Okay.
it defines how that is applied for. It comes to CDC and then we reviewed. So my time on CDC, several of them have been along the same lines.
Okay.
It's really beneficial.
Sounds good.
And this funding of this is out of the economic development.
Yeah, we've set aside, I don't remember how much money.
I think it's usually around 20,000 a year.
Yeah,
So
we never
we
use it all.
rarely use all of it.
Okay.
We usually get 2 or 3 a year like this. And it's, I think the maximum is 5,000 you
Yeah.
can apply for. So,
Right.
yeah, and you're right, we've had numerous of these downtown. You probably don't notice them, but when people are fixing up their storefront, but we're encouraging them to do that basically. It's to meet the certain standards that we have and keep more of a uniform look, and they can get up to $5,000. So it goes in waves. So sometimes a couple of years you'll see it going, but then we'll go a few years and not see any applications. So it's usually when buildings turn over, like this one is, a new ownership, and they want to do something new with the building, they'll apply for the facade grant. So
Okay.
So it's safe to characterize this as incentivizing
Downtown.
downtown people. You know, you can't force them to spend money, you know, to revitalize the facade. Similar to what we're doing on the sidewalks, right? Making some money available, to incentivize people to, keep the sidewalks, up to speed in par. So it's a similar effort, and I think there's other neighborhood revitalization grants and programs
Yeah.
to do that, so.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Do you need one for each?
No.
Okay, I move we approve the facade grant applications for 714 to 728 Street.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the Elite Chiropractic CDBG grant. They met all their requirements for the grant process, went through all the paperwork. This was discussed while we're notified of it in the finance committee, so. Are there any questions for this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve Elite Chiropractic for a CV grant for up to $30,000, subject to environmental clearance.
Second.
Been moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, same thing for 7th Street Hair. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve 7th Street Hair for a CV grant up to $30,000, subject to environmental clearance.
Second.
Been moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes. Next is ordinance 1420, condemnation. This is for the property for the 56 alignment, realignment this fall. We're kind of doing this simultaneously, so that way the property owner is supposed to sign everything, but we're getting pushed up against the deadline by KDOT. So we need to kind of start the condemnation process just in case they don't sign it, so that way we can go down that route to get this project started per KDOT's guidelines. Glenn can explain further.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, if you understand where this is at, it's that empty lot that's in that Rickon where we have that little park. It's just the one that's over from there. And we've been negotiating for a couple of years for an easement. So we have a plan to basically work with them, and we're gonna pay them what are perceived damages for that easement. But they have not signed it all yet. Just heard today from our attorney, Jason Pryor, has been working with Blake on that. They're all ready to go. They just need to sign the documents and maybe a couple more pieces of information. They were ready to go. But on the advice of our attorney who's worked on this, he said, go ahead and sign this. He has communicated that with the landowner, so it's not a surprise to them. We're not going to shock them when they see this tomorrow somewhere in a news article or something. They're well aware we're going through the condemnation procedure. I'm 99.99% sure right now we won't have to use it, but we need it in our back pocket because we won't have another opportunity to work against a deadline. KDOT will need to start bidding out the project here at the end of this year, early next year, and it'll start next year. So it's about at least a year behind what we thought we'd be with this thing when we started it probably 7 years ago now. It's been a long time in the making. So this hopefully is just pro forma, and we'll never have to use it, but if something happens and the current landowner does not sign, then we can go through this and start the condemnation process. Very similar to what we did on 2 other pieces of property on Highway 56 for the exact same project. So a little confusing, but I hope we never have to use this ordinance.
Take your pen back there.
Any further questions on that?
I just got a quick, just educate me, what is the city's ability to go do this? Condemnation of property for the city benefit, what are the limits there?
Well, we have the ability to condemn property within the city limits as long as we have to adequately compensate the taking of the land as well. So for when it's a project like this, we can go in, do it, go through that process. And most of the time, it never gets to the actual condemnation. On projects like this, it never gets to that point. Of course, there are other aspects of condemnation too. If it's a dangerous structure, something that needs to be taken down, that sort of thing, we can condemn it at that point as well. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about the taking of that land for the public improvement of that highway.
Yeah, and we have to do it, not KDOT, since it's in the city, and we did get a grant, a KDOT grant for this. But under this circumstances, the city has to be the one that acts on this. So if it's for a public improvement, and that's really the test. It's for broadly defined public improvement, and this would fall under that highway requirement.
And this owner knows all that.
Yeah, that was my question, is the parameters of public improvement, right? So it's a broad term, but at least it is some metric you have to hit other than picking somebody's lot.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's just,
you can't arbitrarily just say, I kind of want that lot now.
Yeah. So that's why I was looking
And to be
for.
clear, this is for an easement that I was going through, this is what's going on, so that's why it's taking so long. We're dealing with their side, our side, and with KDOT, all have to agree on this. So it's been about a 2-year process.
It's been, well, just for this process was started in 2015,
Yeah.
so.
But this is the last piece.
This is the last one.
Project will start this fall.
Right.
I mean, does it typically get hung up on the price?
That's typically, that's,
And there's no arbitration to that, it's really,
okay, if we were to condemn, which we did on 2 areas of the property, that basically goes to arbitration. That's the
Okay.
second-
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's the second half of the
And that's when an appraiser gets called in.
That's what I was wondering. So it's not take it over, condemning it, it's condemnation goes into the arbitration process. Okay.
Right.
This is very fair and open process.
The condemnation happens regardless, it's the value that then goes to the court process.
Exactly. Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Very helpful. That's what I needed.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 1420, an ordinance authorizing and providing for the acquisition of lands or interest therein by condemnation for the construction of certain sections of US Highway 56 from Eisenhower to First Street in the city of Baldwin City, Douglas County, Kansas, project number 56-23, KA-4365-01.
Is there a
Second.
second, or somebody want to repeat that?
I second it.
Larry?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is committee reports, budget and finance, Scott.
Okay, yeah, we met last Friday. Several things. I mean, first thing, I see Ben's left, but I did miss the opportunity to thank him and Jack and Baker Tilly and the whole budget process. They've been incredible to work with, and you guys have seen a lot of the output of that, so we'll thank him. I didn't even recognize him because he's always on Zoom, and I've never seen him in a mask, so I had no idea he was sitting there. But they've done a great job, along with Glenn and the staff and the mayor of really putting this, putting this in the format that we were comfortable with, answering all our questions, making changes where it made sense. So they've just been tremendous to work with. I can't see being where we're at without them involved. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, and I'll share that with them next time we see them. So the meeting, the Senior Wheels program was discussed, and Glenn gave us an update. I met with the county and Senior Wheels, and since Glenn, you're sitting here rather than me, give me an update of what you did. Why don't you just provide that for us?
Yeah, we had the opportunity to apply for a van through the KDOT's very generous program they have where they provide 80% of the funding, and that would go through the Douglas County Senior Wheels as it is now, and they're the ones that we work with. So that opportunity is coming up here this fall. So after discussing this, and we did a Zoom meeting or whatever, and we met, I think, yesterday with leadership from our Senior Wheels here. The best way to go forward for us is to continue under Senior Wheels out there with Douglas County. They got the experience to apply for the grant and administer the grant. They know it's KDOT and their personnel very well. So for this cycle, which they'll apply here this fall, we probably won't get a van until about this time next year, a new van. So it'll be a brand new van, and it'll have all the AD accessibility and all of that. But then it'll still be owned and operated and maintained and insured by Senior Resources, but it will be here in Baldwin City as the current one is. So I think that was the consensus of everybody involved. That's the best way to go rather than trying to go alone. And we would be the ones applying for this grant and then be responsible for the van once we got it, which the extra expense on our part, which, we could probably do, but again, it's all absorbed by Senior Wheels of Douglas County. So, and I know they had troubles in the past. It seemed to be they had a director in the past that wasn't quite as responsive, but the person they have right now is terrific. She's great to work with. She's only been there for about a year, but she is really doing a great job, and I've had no problem working with her at all. And so I look forward to working with her many years in the future on this project. So I think we'll just get better as we go forward. So that's kind of where we left it right now.
Yeah, I think the committee have to, basically agreed that just based on, what the support we were getting and the service that was being delivered, it didn't make sense for us to disrupt that and try to take it over. especially with this next van purchase coming up, a decision needs to be made by September, and to figure that out. So, I mean, it doesn't prohibit us from making a different decision down the road if for whatever reason we're not happy with, how the support we're getting. So the committee's recommendation to the council would be just status quo for now. Let them move forward with the program as is. Another thing we discussed was the funding source for the potential property acquisition along the highway, and we talked about, I think we ended up agreeing it made sense, if possible, looks like it is, to use cash reserves to purchase the property as opposed to additional debt. So that was discussed. CDBG grant award process, Laura gave us an update. We talked about that tonight. And I guess there's another, and Glenn, you may want to jump in here, investigate another moderate income housing grant. Well, there's a couple $1 million available. We can apply for up to about $4,000 maximum. $400,000, sorry, $400,000. So any feedback you want to give on that, Glenn?
Yeah, we received that grant a few years ago, and basically it's just that, they only have a couple $1 million statewide, but you can go up to $400,000. And what we used it for last time was the down payment assistance plan, so I think we got about 10 houses out of what we did on the last round of grants. And we probably duplicate that effort here, and so it's aimed at not low to moderate income, it's a moderate, so it's a different level of income, and that adjusts, of course, every year. So it just takes time and energy to apply for it, but if we do that, that would be a great incentive again. With the match that with the neighborhood revitalization of down payment assistance, I think we're miles ahead of any small city that would be offering incentives to build in their town. So I don't think anyone can beat us on that, I really don't. So I think it's, I'm certainly willing to apply for that again this year and see how that works out. So that funding round will be coming up here pretty soon.
Great, thanks. We talked about CARES Act funding where we applied for, I think, our $16,000 roughly expenses for masks and just, COVID-related expenses that we applied for. And I think the feedback we got was, county commissions, others took the definition of what you could apply for, what you could apply for in that, in that funding act a little broader than we did. So the commission's kind of looking at, hey, there may be additional funding if we broaden out what is allowed to use this fund for. So we may get back in and have an opportunity to participate in more of that than we've already applied for and gotten. Anything in addition to that you want to add, Glenn?
No, the county commission was going to meet on that this week, but I didn't hear the results.
Okay.
But they kind of brought it to our attention because one of the smaller cities applied for much more than we did under the CARES Act, and they didn't think that was equitable. So they try to treat all the cities, including Lawrence, all the same. So they approached us and said, we might want to even this out a little bit, and they were going to meet sometime this week, but I didn't hear the results of it yet. So we'll find out here pretty soon.
Okay. The last thing is, I think we're going to start next week, maybe next time, just as the committee start working on figuring out how to get this budget information to the website in a easily understandable format. So we'll work with staff and, Baker Tilly to figure out what that looks like, what makes most sense to land on the website so people can get access to it and actually understand what it is. So we'll be spending some cycles on that. That's all I had.
All right. Need to go, Susan.
Only thing I really have is there's the revealing of the first mural bench at Sullivan Square. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, so Brian, did you have any talking points on that?
Pretty good crowd there because they also took a photo for the people that make masks at the Lumberyard Arts Center, so there was 30 to 40, 50 people there.
Good.
2 more benches will be on the way in the next few weeks, and those are going by the splash pad, I believe, so there will be seating there. We've heard that people would like some benches over there too, but I have seen, just about every time I drive by the Lucy bench, somebody's sitting there. Also, there's cornhole going on now.
Yeah.
So it's 22 teams.
Is that
Wow.
No, that's all.
Okay. And then, have you guys read the city council newsletter that Lynn put out? Which, great job, excellent information. The survey results were in there from the community center that went out. So really good feedback on that. I think it was 281 responses, which is a lot for it only being out for a week. And I think overall, if you put it into two buckets, no, we don't want a community center, yes, we do overwhelmingly. Baldwin wants a community center, but there was definitely a lot of confusion there as far as the difference between a community center and a rec center. So I think that's something we need to work on clarifying as we move forward. That's all I have.
Public safety, Corey.
We met on Thursday the 13th. Pretty light agenda. Ed presented us, Community Development Director presented us with the MPO, kind of the future plan for the sidewalks, the next wave of funding coming through. And then Rob Coley kind of mentioned a slight concern, under control, but we have the two water towers, the one on the north end, the one on the west end. Well, it's the one on the west end that's experiencing some kind of stratification issue with chlorine separating. I think it's heat related, they don't really know, but there's a device. But before he does that, he kind of wanted to tinker with it a little bit. No cause for alarm or anything, but he definitely wanted to mention that and kind of have me present that at the finance committee as well in case we have to purchase that device that kind of breaks down the stratification and blends it all. So kind of a weird deal, but that's all I have.
Not certain it's either.
That's nuts. That's crazier than catfishing with your arm. We meet again on September 8th.
All right, public works and code.
No report, we meet this Thursday, 9 o'clock, City Hall.
Legislative, Julie.
I have nothing to report.
City administrator, staff comments?
That's not me. The only thing I had a question on the work session coming up, we were gonna have two, now we're just gonna have one. You still wanna keep it at 6 o'clock or?
No, we'll do
move it back
7.
to traditional 7 o'clock conference
Traditional
slot?
7 o'clock.
Move it back to 7, okay, all right.
We're also gonna have some opening, what we're calling this.
Oh, well, I think we can get that at the workshop. Exactly what we're gonna call this, because I think it's part of the confusion, exactly what we're gonna call this. It is proposed as a community center. So we need to make that point at the workshop, but that's what we need to do there. So, okay, we can push that back to 7 o'clock. So, okay, very good. That's the only question I had.
All right. Any questions on the council's summary or vendor reports from the council? Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes, we're adjourned. Just on work.